with her hypnotic dance. She holds me here with only a glance. She's over me. She's over me. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to our Valentine's Day special edition of the Paranormal Portal Bedtime Stories from Beyond. I'm running late. I can't help it. Valentine's Day is a busy night, apparently, to try to get a bite to eat. And so it took me a little longer than I expected, but I had to share the day with you because Valentine's Day is all about sharing the day with those you love. And, of course, I love you guys. So I knew I had to be here. I knew I couldn't miss tonight of all nights because this is the celebration of love. And I love the way you love me, and I love loving you too. So hope you guys are doing great. And thank you so much for being here. Thank you for being patient while I rushed home as quickly as I could and flew into the studio and got ready and brought you the best show I know how to bring you. But I hope you're all ready because it's time for bed. All right, ladies and gentlemen, and thanks, really, I appreciate that. That's nice. Yeah, she's understanding. She knows the portal's a big part of my life, and she's excited about the portal too. So it's not, I wasn't sure how it would go, if she'd be up for it or not, but she had no reservations about me doing a show. So, and I mean, it's not as though it's not a committee. I mean, we're a committee here at the house. I mean, we talked things over, and she was like, yeah, go ahead. That's cool. So here I am, and thank you guys for waiting for me. Those of you that did, and I see many of you guys piling in. So it's a great turnout, and happy Valentine's Day to you guys. I hope you had a wonderful day, whatever you did. I mean, it's a really commercialized holiday, and it's and as they all are anymore. And so people want to talk you into buying the roses and stuff like that, and that's sweet and all, but we didn't do that. We usually don't do that kind of stuff because it's all about the expression. It's all about the heart of it. So and the Mrs. Portal's pretty understanding about all that, and she agrees that it's a lot of times you're just throwing away money. And so I don't know, but if you did have an elaborate celebration, fantastic. I'm not trying to be preachy or tell you, what you should believe or shouldn't. If you like going out and being extravagant, cool. I mean, if that's your thing, outstanding. I'm happy for you. But if you just stayed home and just watched your favorite show or something, I mean, that's cool too. I think it's all fine as long as you're happy in your heart. However you're happy being in your heart, then that's all that matters. So, I haven't quite pulled up much for tonight's show because, as I mentioned, I just kind of flew in the door and went, ooh, I'm late. And thank you, Danielle, for posting a message on the Paranormal Portal page for those of you that were able to check it out. And if you're ever wondering about a show, if the show isn't on like it should be, check facebook.com/Paranormal Portal Radio, and I'll always post a notice up there about what's going on if I'm not on the air when I should be. just check that page because there'll always be updates and stuff. So, but I'm glad you guys are here, and let's see what we can tear up tonight. Let's see what kind of mayhem we can whip up tonight. Ooh, this one sounds good. Ooh, this one sounds creepy. Ooh, this one sounds good. And that one sounds festive. Oh, I'm just pulling up a bunch of them here, and we'll see. I have read none of these, so I don't know what I'm pulling up, but hopefully they're as good as they sound. I'm not reading that one. It might fit okay for Valentine's Day, but I'm not reading sexual entities. This is a family show, and while I think those kind of things probably, could happen with succubus and incubus and all that kind of stuff, I don't doubt that people do have erotic experiences with spirits, but you'll have to find those on your own. I'm not gonna make this a Harlequin novel. So anyway, let's see what we did find here. So the first one I found just now for you because I love you, and it's kind of how I shop too, by the way. That's how I shop. I mean, when I'm shopping for Christmas presents and stuff, I have no idea what I'm getting anybody. I just go in the store and look, and when something hits me, boom, that's what I'm getting for this person. Boom, that's what I'm getting for that person. Generally I have no plan, and it's just how I live my life, unfortunately, maybe, but it's me. And that's just the way I do it. So let's see how I did. The first one tonight is coming from New York. All right, so let's see what's going on in New York. I'm going to lean forward a little bit here. Whew. It's snowing here again, by the way. What the hell? That's all I have to say about that. So what the hell? I need shorts. I need my flip-flops or bare feet. Oh. I had to sneak a Coke. I'm cheating on my diet, but I can't help it. All right, so from New York, ladies and gentlemen. This story isn't about me. It's about my friend who had an encounter. And my friend Matt was talking to his girlfriend outside of his house at night because it was really cold out. And he decided to sit in his car in the driveway. And so he went and sat in the passenger seat, and he was talking to his girlfriend. And he glanced into the rearview mirror of his car. And what happens next? He swears is true, and I believe him. He says he saw an old man in the back seat of his car. He didn't recognize him at all, but he tells me he can still remember his face as clear as day. He described him as pale and had a narrow nose, and he was clean-shaven and dark eyes, almost black-looking eyes. So he turned around to look back, but nothing was there. And that's when he became frightened and jumped out of the car. He ran into his house, and he looked back into the car while running, and he saw the man's face pressed against the glass, staring right at him. That's creepy. So he ran back into his house to tell his parents, who didn't believe him at all. And this is where his story gets interesting. When he went back to look into his car the next morning, the seatbelts in the back were buckled up. He also noticed that the rearview mirror was tilted in a different direction. So he decided to do a little research about his car, and he found out that his parents actually bought it from a man they were good friends with, and it turns out that the man's father died from a heart attack in the back seat of the very car that they purchased. So Matt asked if they could get a picture of the man's father, and it just so happens they did, and I was actually at his house the time that he saw the picture, and when I saw his eyes look at the photograph, his jaw dropped and his eyes widened. I took a look at the photo, and he looked just as Matt described him. The man in the picture looked exactly the same, down to every last detail. After that, his parents fully believed him, although they did keep the car. Ever since that night, however, he hasn't seen the old man in the mirror again. And maybe that's just the thing. It's just trying to tell his story. Hey, a little piece of me is here because this is where I ended my journey. So, just an acknowledgement, I guess. All right, the next one, ladies and gentlemen, is coming from Pennsylvania. It says, this story happened when I was about 10 years old, and which would have made it about 1994. And I remember school had let out for Easter vacation, and it was a Friday night, Good Friday, and I just got done watching Ghostbusters with my mom and stepdad, and I went off to bed where my sister was sleeping. And to give you the layout of the house, you open the front door and step into the living room. And right off to the right was my bedroom, and there was a little hallway between my room and the living room. At the end of the hallway was my mom's room and the bathroom, so if you were in my room, you could see into the living room. I went to bed, and my sister, as I think it's supposed to say was one, but it says which as one, which was one at the time, and I shared a bed. I don't understand. You don't share a bed with a 1-year-old, do you? Maybe. I don't know. I don't understand that part at all. But it says, I woke you in the middle of the middle to a strange noise. Wow. I don't understand. This is really poorly written. The living room was pitch black, and my room only had a plug-in nightlight. So it was pretty dark, and I rubbed my eyes to see, and I hear the noise again. And I look into the living room, and there was a perfect outline of a child, which was completely black too. And the child sounded like a boy crying, saying, "Mama." Being 10 years old, I freaked out and screamed for my mom, and my mom wakes up and yells, "What do you want?" And I yell back, "Turn on the light." And she then tells me to do it myself. All the while, this child is moving closer to me, and I'm scared to move. My yelling wakes my sister up, and she starts to cry. And when this happens, my mom gets up and turns on the light to get her, and I just about wet myself because the boy was about a foot from my bed. A couple months later, I ended up moving out to live with my dad, but I returned to live with my mom when I was 15 years old, and we were talking one day about that and how no one believed me when that had happened. And I guess a month after I moved, my mom, stepdad, and a few of their friends saw something black race across the carpet, and they could hear a child crying at night as well. My mom apologized for not believing me. The history of the house is that this house and all the other houses in that town I lived in was that they were all the original homes of coal miners that lived in. And the area was big with mining in the 1920s, which was when the town and houses were built. It is sad, though, how they were treated, and it was never paid real money, so they could never get out of that life. Yeah, that wasn't very well written, but still, it's a creepy story, and I don't know. I gotta admit, even if it was just a little child thing, if it was crying and coming towards you and kept coming, that'd be really creepy, especially if you're a 10-year-old. So that's a pretty brave kid, I guess. Okay, the next one, ladies and gentlemen, is from Florida, which is where my heart is right now. My heart is in Florida with shorts and barefoot. I'm sorry to keep whining, but God, I'm so tired of winter. All right, so what's going on in Florida? It says, when my great-grandmother was in the hospital passing away, her brother passed away, and her siblings didn't want to put her in more pain, so they didn't tell her. They went to say goodbye to her, and when they came, she ignored everyone except she had an entire conversation with her dead brother. Maybe he was her escort to heaven. I don't know what they were talking about, though. This story was told to me by my mom, who told it to me. Also, me and my mom were going to comfort my friend after her mom's death, and my friend told me she was okay, but she wanted her mom to send her some kind of sign that she had a safe journey. And just then, her doorbell and telephone rang. Weird. One of my grandmother's friends' husband died suddenly, and she was so sad. And one day, she went into his closet, and there was no leaks or anything, and his favorite outfit was soaking wet, but nothing else was. My cousin was at summer camp and was having a great time, and her mom told her to save all the letters that she got for scrapbook purposes. And so when she got a letter dated July 7th from her grandmother, she thought nothing of it, but when she got back, her mother said that during camp, her grandmother passed away, And then she showed her mother the letter, and her mother passed out. The letter was dated the 7th, but she died on the 6th. This is what the letter said. Dear Cassie, having a great time, huh, Pumpkin? I can see that you have made some new friends, huh? Harriet seems sweet. I'm in the upper U.S. now. My flight left yesterday, and I'm watching you in my mind. Don't you forget Mom. Mom, you here? Don't you forget Mom. Mom, you here? And I am still with you in spirit. Your mama has some news for you when you get back, sweetie. Don't want to spoil it. Well, I'm wasting your time. XOXO, sweetie. I love you to death. Love, my mom. Yeah, if that's legitimate, that's pretty profound. This person seems to have a lot of ghost stories, though, and I guess it's not up to me to say whether they're real or not. Again, in the paranormal, anything is possible. It's good to see all you guys in here. There's 19 of you with us, as far as I can tell. The counters aren't real accurate, though. I've noticed that. So it's hard to know exactly how many are there, but I see all of you talking. And let's see who's talking. Bella's in there. Hi, Bella. Danny. Good to see you, Danny Lukes. Dezombified is in there. Good to see you. Diana. Good to see you. Haxor. Good to see you, brother. Lena. Aloha. Mike Cool. Good to meet you, Mike. I don't know if I've met you before, but good to see you. Really, and Renee. Good to see you guys. Thanks so much for being here with us. The next one. Okay, let me get to the next one. I got to close one to open another. All right, and this one's coming from Connecticut. Connecticut, otherwise known as Connecticut. It was about 1:30 a.m. on a Saturday, and I had a few friends over for a sleepover, and we stayed up all night long, and we were camping out in my backyard, and I said, hey, guys, I have to use the bathroom. I'll be right back. And I walked into my house and went up to the second floor. Then I heard footsteps walking up the stairs, and I thought it was my friends trying to pull a prank on me, so I ran into my room and put on a mask, and I could still hear the footsteps. I went to the top of the stairs and jumped out and screamed to scare my friends, but nobody was there. I heard the footsteps again, but this time they were coming from upstairs, and then it hit me. It was probably my parents. So I went upstairs to see what they were doing, and when I got up there, again, nobody was there. So I went into my parents' room, but they were asleep. And I ran out onto my balcony to see if my friends were still in the backyard, and they were all still there. I didn't know what to do, and then I thought that maybe it was a robber. So I ran to my parents' room and woke them up, and my mom ran into her closet and got her gun, and my dad checked all the doors and said that they were all locked. They said that I was just tired and I was hearing things, and I said that they were probably right. So I went back into the yard and we partied, and at about 5 a.m., I got out of my tent to stretch, and everybody else was sleeping, and I went out and sat in a chair and looked up at my house and saw a dark figure looking at me through one of the windows. I stood up to get a closer look, but right then, when I stood up, it vanished. I told my friends, but they didn't believe me. The next time I had a party, the same thing happened, but this time my parents actually saw it. They called over a psychic, and she said that it was the spirit of the owner in the 1700s, and she said that he fell off one of the balconies at my house during one of his parties. And she also said that he was angry because they were having parties in his house. A few years later, when I was about 15, the same thing happened, but this time it was bad. My friend went to use the bathroom, and I was having a high school party, and when he entered the bathroom, the door shut behind him, and it locked. By the time we opened the door, he had a scratch on his face and said someone or something attacked him, and we quickly moved from the house after that. We had a church right next to the house, and the church service bought the house and used it for the priest, and the priest did an exorcism, and there were no more reports of ghosts, but the thought of that ghost I would never forget. Well, that's a pretty cool story. The next one, ladies and gentlemen, is from California. The sunny state of California. Yeah, I'm stuck on this weather thing. Sorry. All right. So what's going on in California? Well, I'll tell you. Just hang on. I've had a lot of experiences with ghosts in my house, but none of them have been human. In fact, they're all feline, and I enjoy their presence greatly. The particular cat ghost that this story is about is named Flake, originally short for Snowflake, but changed when we realized he was really a pale orange and not white. He lived a normal life for 10 years, and then suddenly, over the space of several months, his entire back end stopped working. It turned out the 10-year-old cat had a tumor on his spine, and there was nothing we could do. So we knew where he was the last few nights of his life and could make him comfortable, and he had been staying in one of our bathrooms on this plush rug. And he was a flighty cat as it was. Normally, he didn't usually like to be touched unless it was on his terms, as in he jumped into your lap. Yes, you could pet him, but don't try to chase him down to pick him up. And was afraid of every new thing that came at him. And I was a new thing, and he was afraid of me. We had a nice vet who agreed to do an in-home euthanasia for us, so Flake wouldn't have to endure a car ride to a place that terrified him. And the night before the vet was to come to put him down, I was in the bathroom with him because my adopted sister was in the bathroom we usually use, and I was sitting on the toilet, and suddenly Flake pulled himself over with just his front paws, nuzzled his head against my leg, and I reached down and petted him, then got off the toilet to crouch on the floor and pet him, and he let me. His last day alive, he accepted me into the family, and it made me happy and sad all at the same time. Fast forward to 1 year anniversary of the night before he had to be put to sleep, and that afternoon, as I went into our parents' bathroom, the other bathroom toilet seat was broken, I saw him incredibly clearly lying on the rug in the bathroom, the same place I saw him a year ago when he was living in the bathroom at the time due to his inability to use his hind legs. I blinked and expected him to go away, but he didn't. I stepped into the room, and I had to go to the bathroom after all, and shut the door behind me, and again he was still there. So I started talking to him, letting him know that it was nice to see him, and asking him why he decided to come and visit. I didn't really get the impression of answers from him, but then again, I didn't really expect any. Squeak is the only ghost cat who's ever given me the impression of any kind of response, and that was just pictures and thoughts along the line of, "Hi, sorry I missed you," or things to that effect. As I sat on the toilet, he stood up and moved towards me. His paws weren't pressing into the plush rug in there, not that I expected him to, and with him being a ghost and all, but that's just the kind of little detail I noticed for no apparent reason. He did exactly what he'd done the night before he died, coming over and gently rubbing his cheek against my leg. I really expected him to disappear now, and I've never interacted with a ghost for this long before. And feeling his fur was the most surreal experience I've ever felt. Even more so than when he brushed against me in the hallway about a month before. I had a sudden fear that he was saying goodbye for some reason, and started trying to convince him not to leave. He's been here for over 10 years, and while his 11th birthday passed without him physically being present for it, I whispered a happy birthday to the winds that night for him. As much as encounters with him and the other ghost cats occasionally flip me out, I also can't imagine the house without them, especially Flake, who I feel really close to, despite having only known him for 3 months when he was alive. I know my sister feels very close to Mo and Squeak, our other 2 active resident ghost cats, but I like Flaky Cat. I didn't get the impression from his continued nuzzling of my ankle that he was going anywhere, so that allayed my fear a bit, and without thinking, he'd been there and basically solid for a good 10 minutes by then. I pretty much stopped thinking of him as a ghost cat and just gone soft kitty in my head at this point. I reached down and petted his head, and I swear that cat shed on me. I could feel his plushy fur stick into my fingers. And I kept petting him, though, and after I finished and moved to clean up, intending to kneel on the floor next to him as I'd done the night before he died to pet him more thoroughly, and it's hard to reach the floor from the toilet when you're as overweight as I am. But when I looked down, he'd finally disappeared. It was actually a jolt, to be honest, and I'd hoped he'd stick around and I could maybe, odd thought, but I was kind of sleepy, pick him up for the first time. I never actually got to hold him and only petted him 3 times, and he was flighty and didn't really like to be touched unless he wanted it, which was why that night meant so much to me. Wow. That's amazing. Huh. I suppose. I mean, if people can manifest so clearly, I don't see any reason why animals couldn't as well. Very curious. Very, very curious. All right. So the next one, ladies and gentlemen, is bringing us back to New York. New York. Yoik. I don't know. New York. Forget about it. All right. I've been wondering lately if most kids who supposedly have imaginary friends are really just talking with ghosts. That happens. Some of them are actually ghosts, I think, but I think that kids also have imaginary friends sometimes too. It happened with my cousin's daughter last year, and now I'm seeing it with my daughter. A month or so ago, my 2-year-old started saying hi and then talking gibberish to the ceiling. Every once in a while, when I was putting her to bed, it always started spontaneously, whether we were talking, reading a story, or singing. One night it happened, and then a few hours later I heard her whimper a bit, and then very clearly and loudly, we use a baby monitor, say, "No, no, no." When I went into her room, she was sitting up scowling and talking to somebody. Fast forward on Friday night, she did the same thing, only this time she said, "Hi, Brian. Hi, Brian." It was very clear and audible, and I work with someone named Brian, so I dismissed it to myself and chalked it up to her practicing the name or something. And then the next day, we were out in the backyard, and she was swinging and started saying, "Hi, Brian," again. I still didn't think much. Then last night, putting her to bed, again she says, smiling and looking up at the ceiling, "Hi, Brian. Hi, Brian. Night-night, Brian. Night-night, Gaga." And then it hit me. I don't think it's the Brian I work with that she is talking about. Number one, first let me explain that my niece and nephew always called my grandfather Gaga. He has been dead for several years now, and he died before my daughter was born. And when I show her pictures, I call him Grandpa, because we call my dad, her grandfather, Papa. So there really isn't any confusion. And my niece and nephew are older now. My nephew no longer refers to him as Gaga, but my niece still does because she's autistic with a speech impairment, and that is easier to say. And they have both insisted that they have seen him since he passed away. At Christmas this year, all of the photographs taken here in the house were filled with white orbs, and the largest ones were clustered mostly around my grandmother, Gaga's widow. Number two, early last week, a close friend and coworker had her 30-year-old son, Brian, commit suicide. Since then, things have been horrible for her, of course, so I've been working a lot and doing everything I can to cover for her at work, as well as talking with her family a lot, making food, buying groceries, putting his obituary in the paper, getting her in touch with another friend whose daughter also committed suicide last year, etc. So when I put number one and number two together, I get goosebumps. I asked my daughter why she told Brian and Gaga night-night, and she just giggled. The obituary and cards from the funeral home, both with his photographs, have been laying around my house for a few days now. And when the babysitter saw me pick up one of the cards and show it to my daughter this morning and say, "Who is this?" to see if she would say Brian, the babysitter told me, one, she had started saying "Hi, Brian" out of nowhere the other day while outside swinging. Babysitter also assumed she was just practicing the name of the person I work with. And number two, had been carrying around the cards and obit all week saying, "Brian, Brian." This never seems to happen when my husband is around, but he completely believes me. He, however, thinks the Brian part is implausible because his spirit would be too confused to come here to visit after just committing suicide. Keep in mind, I don't know Brian and have only met him once since he lived out of state, but my thought is that if it's him, he might be here because he knows how hard I've been working to help his mom deal with and help his family in any way I can. He was bipolar, from what I have been told, and was very loving, gregarious, yet gentle soul, and he was very much into music, nature, loved his dogs, loved his family, and friends with unparalleled passion. Maybe he wants to thank me. Maybe he wants to let his mom know that he's okay. She doesn't have any other family or close friends who have children as young as my daughter at home, so maybe this was the easiest way to get close to her. Maybe. I don't know. That I do think that children see those kind of things so much clearly, though. And I don't know why we lose that, but I think it has something to do with just our lives, technology, our pace of life, the demands on our attention, the things that draw us out of that centered place that we're so naturally in as little children. I don't know. It's just a theory, but it's as plausible as any, I guess. All right. Let's see. Everything going good? Man, I need to get some glasses. My eyes are just cooked today. I woke up at like 3:45 today. I did take a nap for about an hour, but still I feel like that was like 3 hours of sleep, and then I woke up, and then I got another hour nap after that. But I'll tell you, it's been a long day. Not a bad day, but a long day. All right, the next one is coming from Oklahoma. So let's see what's going on in Oklahoma after I squeegee my eyeballs. All right. Sorry. Once my friend and I were hanging out in my room, and we started to hear sounds that were really like footsteps and bangs coming from up in the attic. And the next day when my dad was home, I went into the attic to see what it was. There was no one and nothing up there to make those sounds. And, sorry, I got to get past this part because it refers to another story. Another time, my friend was trying to get to sleep, and it was at her house, and I wasn't there, but she began to hear something tapping on the desk about 12 inches from the foot of her bed. She got up to see what it was, and it stopped, and it began again when she laid back down, and so on and so forth. She finally decided to sleep downstairs. Yeah, that's annoying. I mean, if you are a spirit and you're just hanging out, why irritate the hell out of the people that are trying to do their life? It's like, I'm going to sit here and tap till they get up. Oh, they got up. I'm going to quit. Oh, they laid down. Tap, tap, tap. It's just like, my God, just find something productive to do. All right. So, my friend's backyard backs up to a large field, and she's told me that she can never go into the backyard at night because she keeps getting the feeling that she's being watched. She can go into the front yard, no problem, but the backyard is just not an option. I'm growing quite tired of saying my friends, so let me give you their names. The friend that I will speak of most is named Saku, S-A-K-U, and the friend that I probably won't talk about as often is named Silence. Saku and I were going on a bike ride around dusk, and this was still during the time of our What the hell is sclerophobia? Sclerophobia. I got to Google that word. I don't even know what the hell that means. Sclerophobia? Let's see what it means, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Googling as we speak. It's the fear of bad men. People with this fear tend to worry about any man that might attack or harm them, such as criminals, robbers, rapists, murderers, etc. The origin of this word is scalero, is Latin meaning wickedness or crime, and phobia is Greek meaning fear. So it's a fear of criminals. Okay. Wait, I didn't close that one. So this was still during the time of our sclerophobia. I assume that's how it's pronounced. I just found out what it meant, much less how it's supposed to sound. So that's the best I can do with that word. Sorry. My neighborhood is connected to another, and we both know of a path that goes through the woods into the other neighborhood and back. And this is where we often go on bikes and walks. And since it was dark, I was very afraid of going into the dark woods for fear of a killer being in there. And I realized that I had to, because that was really the only way back. Even if I turned around, the trail basically goes in a circle. And while I was riding very quickly, I heard footsteps, not from animals, and twigs snapping. Not from animals, and also heard twigs snapping, sorry. Branches slapping against others, and things that animals wouldn't cause. Saku and I were at my mom's old house. My mom had gone to the store, and I really don't remember why. And when I was little, I had a life-size Barbie doll that now belongs to my sister, who is 4 years old, and we went into my sister's room, and the doll's head was turned to the left. We went back in the living room, but the next time we went in there, its head was turned to the left. Keep in mind that we were alone. What, did they straighten it out? I don't understand. So it was turned to the left. They went out and came back, and it was still turned to the left. Or did they straighten it out and that wasn't mentioned? I don't know. I don't write them. I just read them, ladies and gentlemen. But the next time we went in, their head was turned to the left. Keep in mind that we were alone. We got scared. So we charged from the room. Okay. In about a half an hour, we decided to go back in. The door wouldn't budge, like it was locked. The only problem with that theory is that there was no lock on my sister's door. Finally, we got it open, and the doll's head was turned towards us. Something about it made its plastic features look angry. And we didn't go back in there until my mom got home, and when its head was turned to the left, the way it was before she went to the store. Okay. I don't know. I've seen video that purports to show these dolls doing things like that. Again, dolls, the original intent of dolls, as I understand it from the ancient times, was to house spirits. And that's another reason why the Amish won't allow faces on their dolls, is because they feel if there's a face, then a spirit can inhabit it. But if it doesn't have a face, it won't be attractive to a spirit to be in it. Again, I don't know. Maybe it's based around a superstition. Maybe it's based around fact. I don't know. But very cool nonetheless. So we're already at 38 minutes. Wow. Time flies when you're reading spooky stuff. Let me pull up a couple more, and then we'll call it a night. How did I miss this one? I thought I pulled it up. Let me see if I did. Okay, no, I didn't. Okay, this one's coming from Connecticut. I just want to make sure. Okay, yeah, I didn't read this one before, so this one's coming from Connecticut as well, ladies and gentlemen. And I feel I should give you the background about my home first. The house is about 117 years old, and I've lived in it for my entire life. I would say the haunting started when I was about 3 years old. My mother told I think it's me, I had an irrational fear of being alone upstairs, and sometimes even being upstairs at all. When I was about 5, I remember things started to go missing and then turn up again in peculiar places. One incident, my mother had a jar of money that had vanished, and a day later I found it in my dollhouse. I had no idea how it got in there, and along with other things being misplaced, we heard disembodied voices, people whispering, and my mother on several occasions came to my comfort because she heard a child crying and assumed it was me, when in fact it wasn't. When I finally got my own room, I was moved into what I now call the nightmare room. I called it this because as the night went on and I stayed in this room, I started to develop a severe case of night terrors. Every night I would wake up screaming from graphic, gory dreams. I never was allowed to watch horror movies as a child, so when I described the dreams in such detail to my mom, she was absolutely shocked. Eventually, I was moved from the room, and slowly the night terrors stopped, but I kid you not, to this day, I sleep with a blanket over my head. I think the absolute scariest thing, though, was when I was about 8, and there had not been much activity in a while. I was soundly asleep when I felt the sensation of almost like someone gently tapping on my calf to get my attention. Well, it was enough to get my attention. I opened my eyes and I saw a full body apparition of a young man by the end of my bed. I was so shocked, I just screamed at the top of my lungs. And just like that, it was gone, never to show itself to me again. As I got older, the activity slowed down. And now at the age of 20, they're almost never active. I don't know if they're just dormant or maybe they only show themselves to children, and I guess, honestly, I'll never know. On a side note, in high school, one of my teachers happened to live in my house when she was young, just for a short time, and she confirmed that she too had heard things in that house and had small things go missing. Other than that tidbit, I know nothing about the history of the home, although I would love to someday find out. Yeah, it's hard to know. And again, there doesn't have to be a history. There just has to be presences. And they aren't always tied to the history of the house. They may be tied to the people. They may be tied to an object brought into the house. There's so many variations and possibilities to what creates those havens for spirits. But generally, I really believe that in many cases, it has to do with the sensitivity of a person there, that somebody has latent abilities and they are drawn to that. I think that that's probably the most powerful beacon. But again, we'll probably never know as well. All right, I'm going to read you guys one more, and we'll see what's going on. Let's see which one. I'm not reading that one. Okay, well, I don't know what this one is, but let's take a look. This one's coming out of California, ladies and gentlemen, and it's pretty short. So this is the last one for tonight. This is my Valentine's Day present to all of you. This show tonight. I hope it's been worth the wait. I'm sorry I was late, but it's Valentine's Day, you know. One time when I was still in middle school, I spent the night at one of my friend's house, and her dad suggested we should go up to a place called Gravity Hill. It was only a road, and off the road there was a slaughterhouse. And after we drove up, the dad put his car in neutral, and we faced up the hill. And all of a sudden we started rolling, and I was convinced the dad was joking and moving the car, but when I asked him, he pressed the gas and the engine revved, but we kept rolling. After it ended, the dad drove back to where it started, and before he put the car in neutral, we got out and put baby powder all over the back of the car. And when we got back in, it started rolling. Thankfully, it was really dark, so we never knew when the car was coming. Then after the rolling stopped, we pulled over to the side and got out of the car, and we took out flashlights and looked at the back. And what I remember seeing was seriously creepy. There were shapes that looked like handprints over the powder. And we ended up videotaping what we saw and went back home. A few days later, I decided to look up where we went, and the story behind that road was that there had been a school bus crash. Children died, and the rumor was that the rolling was the children pushing the car to keep you from the same fate. Creepy, huh? I think I've heard of maybe not this exact place. I think it was Gravity Hill though, but there were plenty of shows that have gone out to look into these phenomena. And what it is it's essentially, usually it's just an optical illusion. It looks like it's a downslope, but it's actually an upslope, and you end up rolling the opposite direction you expect to because of the surroundings. If you put a ball or some kind of level, you'll see that it's the bubble will show you the incline, even though it doesn't appear to be correct. Your visual faculties tell you one thing, but the reality of the situation is that it's a complete other thing. So while I think those stories are you know, they're neat and all, I don't think there's much to these kind of stories. I think generally they are just a misperception. And I think that it's important when you're reviewing paranormal activities to try to debunk them. And if they are debunkable, that's okay. It doesn't invalidate the phenomena. It invalidates maybe that specific belief of the phenomena, but there's plenty of other things that can't be validated through science, or can't be debunked through science, I should say. So, people's reluctance to accept those explanations, I think, is because they really want to believe, and that's not bad. I think it's wonderful to believe in things that you find magical and make the world interesting, but there's enough things in the world that are plenty interesting and beyond words, crazy stuff that goes on. But the mundane things that can be explained away, I don't think that there's anything wrong with that. It's like, yeah, people see a lot of times what they want to see, and I think it's important to remain as objective as you can, especially if you want to impress upon others these beliefs. If you want people to believe that there's more to the world, then you can't throw out flimsy possibilities, because a lot of people require pretty concrete proof of some kind, or the lack of being able to provide concrete proof, even subjected to rigorous study. Now, again, the paranormal doesn't lend itself to rigorous study normally, so it's no wonder that many of these things remain unexplained, not because I think people can explain them away, but because, they just happen when they happen. And it may be any one of a million reasons why they happen, but, we don't often know what those triggers are. So just my 2 cents on that. Oh, Mr. Don, you're not the only one that was late. I was actually late. So good to see you, though. And thank you to everybody that's in the stream watching, and thank you to those who are chatting. Again, tomorrow night we will be welcoming Mrs. Diane Swagger to the show, and Diane has been a longtime friend of the portal, and many times she's called in and contributed a lot of amazing insights. So it was long overdue, but we got her on for the show tomorrow. She's going to be our special guest on our Friday night edition of the portal. So I hope you guys will be able to tune into that, again, 7 p.m. Pacific time, here on our YouTube channel, as well as TFR Live, iHeart, and TuneIn and TalkStream Live on the Truth Frequency radio channels. So, but again, happy Valentine's Day to you all. I love you all very much. I hope it's been a wonderful Valentine's Day for you, however you celebrated or didn't celebrate. I just hope you had a great day. But I'll be back tomorrow night, and I'll be here waiting for you. So have a wonderful Friday, and I'll see you on the other side of that, and we'll go back into the portal. I love you all, and be good, be kind, be nice, take care of each other, help each other out, and sweet dreams.